The night the world's most powerful athlete broke down in tears, alone in a hotel room nobody was watching. June 15, 2018, Moscow, the eve of Portugal's opening World Cup match against Spain. While millions prepared to watch Cristiano Ronaldo dominate on football's biggest stage, the man himself sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, staring at a photograph he'd carried for 13 years. A photograph of a man he never really knew, a man whose voice he could barely remember, his father. This is the story you've never heard, the story of how the world's most disciplined athlete faced his most undisciplined demons. The mask of invincibility. Cristiano Ronaldo had built an empire on his back. By 2018, he was more than a footballer, he was a brand, a philosophy, a religion to millions. His Instagram followers numbered in the hundreds of millions. His physique was studied by sports scientists. His work ethic had become the stuff of legend. 5 hours of training daily, 8 separate sleep cycles, a body fat percentage that defied human biology. But empires have cracks, and Ronaldo's was about to split wide open. The pressure heading into Russia was suffocating. At 33, this would likely be his final realistic chance at World Cup glory, the one trophy that had eluded him, the one achievement that separated him from the pantheon of Pelé and Maradona. Portugal was weak. Spain, their opening opponent, was ruthless. The expectations were impossible. Yet none of this was what kept Ronaldo awake that night. But what was really haunting the man who seemed to fear nothing? The ghost of Funchal. José Diniz Aveiro died on September 7, 2005. Cristiano was 20 years old, playing for Manchester United on the cusp of greatness. His father died of liver failure, complications from decades of alcoholism. They never had their final conversation. Cristiano was in England, his father was in Portugal. The call came too late. For 13 years, Ronaldo had run from this. Every sprint, every goal, every trophy was an escape velocity trying to break free from the gravitational pull of that loss. He never spoke about his father publicly. He refused to watch videos of him. When asked in interviews, his jaw would tighten, his eyes would shift, and he would redirect to football. "I don't like to speak about my father because I never really knew him," he told Piers Morgan years later, voice cracking. But in that Moscow hotel room, with the World Cup looming, with the weight of a nation on his shoulders, with his own mortality creeping into view as an aging athlete, the ghost finally caught up. The breaking point. What the cameras didn't show, what his teammates didn't see, was Ronaldo's private ritual before every major tournament. He would isolate himself completely. No family, no friends, total sensory deprivation. He believed this sharpened his focus, turned him into a machine. But this time the machine malfunctioned. Sources close to the Portuguese camp later revealed that Ronaldo had requested something unusual. He wanted footage of his father, home videos, anything. The Portuguese Football Federation scrambled, contacted his family in Madeira, and within hours a USB drive arrived at the team hotel. That night, Ronaldo watched his father for the first time in over a decade. There was José laughing at a family gathering. There he was, barely coherent, drunk at Cristiano's youth match. There, in grainy, heartbreaking footage, was José telling a local reporter, "My son will be the greatest footballer in the world. I know I won't see it, but he will." Ronaldo didn't just cry, he shattered. The performance paradox. Sports psychologists have a term, performance displacement. It's when an athlete uses success to avoid processing trauma. The more you achieve, the less you feel, until you can't achieve anymore. Then everything floods back at once. Ronaldo had been displacing for 13 years. That night, his bodyguard heard sounds from the room, not crying, but something more guttural. The kind of sound a human makes when years of pressure finally puncture the facade. The bodyguard knocked. No answer. He used his keycard and found Ronaldo on the floor, photographs scattered around him, the video still playing on loop. "I can't do this anymore," Ronaldo reportedly said. "I can't be him, I can't be what everyone needs." The bodyguard called the team psychologist. An emergency session lasted until 4 a.m. Portugal's opening match was in 14 hours. But could the world's greatest player even take the field? The resurrection. What happened next defies logic. June 15, 2018. Fished Stadium, Sochi, Portugal vs. Spain, 88,000 fans, billions watching worldwide. Cristiano Ronaldo walked onto the pitch with eyes that looked like they'd been carved from stone. His teammates later said he didn't speak in the locker room, he just stared at his boots. Then the match began. 4th minute, Ronaldo won a penalty. He stepped up, looked at the keeper, and buried it. The celebration was muted, mechanical. 24th minute, Spain equalized, then took the lead. Portugal was collapsing. Ronaldo's teammates were panicking. 44th minute, Ronaldo scored again. A poacher's goal, instinctive, hungry. But Spain kept coming. Diego Costa scored twice, 3-2 Spain. The dream was dying. 88th minute, Portugal won a free kick 25 yards out. Impossible angle, tired legs, everything on the line. And then Ronaldo did what broken men aren't supposed to do. The impossible strike. He placed the ball with trembling hands. He stepped back. The stadium held its breath. In that moment, every demon, every ghost, every year of running crystallized into a single thought. This is for you. The ball curved through the air like a promise kept. It bent physics. It bent reality. It screamed past David De Gea's outstretched hand and nestled into the top corner. 3-3, a hat trick against one of the world's best teams. In his moment of complete psychological collapse, Ronaldo had produced perfection. He didn't celebrate. He ran to the corner flag, fell to his knees, and looked up at the sky. His lips moved, speaking words only he and a ghost could hear. The aftermath. Portugal didn't win the World Cup. They were eliminated in the round of 16 by Uruguay. Ronaldo's final tournament ended in disappointment, but something had shifted. After Russia, Ronaldo began therapy. He started speaking about his father publicly for the first time. He told his children stories about their grandfather. He visited Madeira more often, walked the streets where Jose used to drink, made peace with the ghost. In interviews, he stopped calling himself the best. He started saying, "I'm trying to be worthy." The world still sees Cristiano Ronaldo as the ultimate symbol of strength, discipline, and perfection. What they don't see is the night he broke completely. The night he realized that running from pain only makes you run faster toward emptiness. The world's strongest man learned his most important lesson in his weakest moment. You don't become invincible by avoiding vulnerability. You become human by embracing it. The truth nobody tells you. Today, Ronaldo is still scoring goals, still breaking records, still defying age, but those who know him say he's different now. Softer around the edges, more present with his children, less obsessed with legacy, more focused on meaning. The photograph of his father still travels with him, but now instead of hiding it, he keeps it on his bedside table. Every hotel room, every country, every match. A reminder that the strongest thing you can do isn't to never break. It's to break completely and still choose to stand back up. And every night before the lights go out, Cristiano Ronaldo does the one thing the world never imagined he would allow himself to do. He remembers. Not the goals, not the trophies, not the records carved into history, but the boy from Funchal who ran up steep streets with worn-out shoes and a heart full of fear. The boy who learned early that love could disappear without warning, that silence could last forever. He understands now that his obsession with perfection was never about football, it was about control, about building something so strong that nothing could ever leave him again. But life doesn't work that way. Pain doesn't disappear when you outrun it, it waits patiently until you are tired enough to feel it. That night in Moscow didn't weaken him, it rewired him. It stripped the armor from the machine and revealed the man underneath. The man who could finally accept that greatness is not measured by how much you endure alone, but by how honestly you confront what broke you. Ronaldo still trains harder than anyone, still demands excellence, still hates losing more than breathing, but now there is space in him where silence once lived. Space for his children's laughter, space for forgiveness. Space for the idea that his father, flawed and broken, was still proud, still watching, still part of every step. And when he steps onto the pitch today, whether it's a packed stadium or an empty training ground, he no longer plays to prove he is untouchable. He plays to honor the journey that shaped him, the pain that sharpened him, and the truth that finally freed him. That even legends are allowed to feel, that even the strongest men are allowed to fall apart, and that sometimes the greatest victory isn't the goal you score in the final minute, but the peace you make with the parts of yourself you spent a lifetime trying to outrun. And that peace did not arrive all at once. It came quietly in fragments, in moments no camera ever followed. In early mornings when the gym was empty and the mirrors no longer felt like judges. In late nights when hotel rooms stopped feeling like cages and started feeling like places to rest. Ronaldo began to understand that discipline without compassion becomes punishment, that greatness built only on fear eventually collapses under its own weight. He started calling his mother more often, listening instead of rushing, letting conversations breathe. He hugged his children longer, realizing that presence is the one trophy time can never take back. The hunger to win never left him, but it changed its shape. It was no longer fueled by anger or escape, but by gratitude, by the rare awareness that his story had already exceeded every dream a boy from Madeira was ever allowed to have. And when the crowd chants his name now, when the noise swells and the pressure returns, he no longer hears judgment in it. He hears connection. He hears proof that he is not alone in the struggle, that millions see themselves in his rise and in his scars. Because somewhere between the tears in Moscow and the free kick in Sochi, Cristiano Ronaldo learned a truth few champions ever accept. Legacy is not what you leave behind in record books, it is what you carry forward in your heart. And long after the stadiums fall silent, long after the goals stop coming, long after the world finds a new hero to worship, that lesson will remain steady and unbreakable, reminding him that he was never defined by the mask he wore, but by the moment he finally had the courage to take it off. And when the final whistle of his career eventually comes, it will not sound like an ending. It will sound like release. There will be no sprint down the wing, no roar of the crowd rushing through his veins, no scoreboard to argue his worth. There will only be a man walking away from the game with his head high, carrying memories heavier than any trophy and lighter than any regret. He will know that he gave football everything, and that football gave him a language when he had none, a direction when he felt lost, and a reason to survive when survival was not guaranteed. He will return to Madeira not as a hero chasing validation, but as a son finally at peace, standing where the ocean meets the mountains, understanding that the boy who once ran from pain ran exactly where he needed to go. And if someone asks him, years from now, what made him the greatest, he will not talk about goals or Ballon d'Ors or records that may one day be broken. He will talk about the night he fell apart in silence, the night he faced the ghost he had been outrunning, and the morning he woke up still afraid but willing to keep going. Because in the end, Cristiano Ronaldo's true legacy will not be that he never failed, never aged, never broke. It will be that he did and still chose to rise, not as an icon carved in stone, but as a human being who learned that strength is not the absence of pain, but the courage to carry it forward with grace. And that grace follows him now in ways statistics will never capture. It's there in the calm before matches where anxiety once screamed. It's there in the quiet confidence of a man who no longer needs to dominate every room to know who he is. Ronaldo understands that football was never the destination, only the vehicle, a brutal and beautiful path that forced him to confront himself under the harshest lights imaginable. He knows that one day his body will refuse the commands his mind still gives, that speed will fade, that recovery will take longer, that applause will soften. But he is no longer afraid of that moment because he has already survived something far more frightening, the moment when success could no longer protect him from himself. And so he plays on, not chasing immortality but embracing impermanence, savoring each goal not as proof of greatness but as a gift of time. Time he once tried to outrun. Time he now respects. Somewhere deep inside, the boy from Funchal and the man in Moscow finally walk side by side, no longer at war, no longer hiding. And in that union lies the quiet truth of his journey, that the greatest transformation does not happen when the world is watching, but when the lights are off, the noise is gone. And you choose to face the part of yourself you were taught to bury. Cristiano Ronaldo became a legend through discipline, sacrifice, and relentless will, but he became whole the moment he allowed himself to be human and understood that even the strongest hearts are not meant to beat alone. And that wholeness reshapes how he looks at the world beyond the pitch. He no longer measures days only by training sessions and matches, but by moments that leave no mark on highlight reels, the sound of his children calling his name, the stillness of early mornings before responsibility wakes up, the quiet pride of knowing he no longer needs to be everything to everyone. Ronaldo accepts now that the fire which once burned to escape his past must also learn how to warm the present. He understands that discipline can coexist with tenderness, that ambition does not have to erase empathy, that strength is amplified, not diminished, when it is shared. The fear of being forgotten once his loudest driver has softened into something gentler, the desire to be remembered correctly not as a flawless machine, but as a man who gave everything he had and learned when to stop running. And so, wherever football takes him next, whatever chapter follows the final goal, he carries a quiet certainty that no stadium can give and no defeat can take away. That he faced his deepest wound and did not turn back, that he allowed himself to feel what he once buried, and that in doing so he found a freedom greater than any trophy. Because the real victory was never about being untouchable. It was about learning that even when the mask falls, even when the applause fades, even when you are finally alone with yourself, you're still enough. And that knowledge settles into him like a final breath held and gently released. He moves through the world now with a quieter intensity, no less driven but no longer desperate to outrun shadows that have already softened. The doubts still visit him as they visit every human being who has lived fully, but they no longer control the wheel. He lets them pass, understanding that fear is not a command, only a signal. In that acceptance, Ronaldo discovers something rarer than motivation: peace earned, not given, peace forged through confrontation rather than avoidance. He knows his name will echo long after he is gone, stitched into chance records, debates, and memories, but he also knows that legacy is hollow if it costs you your inner life. So he protects it now. He guards it the way he once guarded his body, with intention and respect. And when people speak of Cristiano Ronaldo in the future, they will talk about the goals, the trophies, the impossible moments. But beneath all of that will live a deeper story. The story of a man who learned that the hardest opponent was never across the pitch, but within, and that true greatness was not proven in victory, but revealed in the moment he stopped running, stood still, and chose to live as himself. And standing still for the first time in his life became his bravest act. In the stillness, he discovered that silence no longer threatened him, that it could be a place of recovery rather than punishment. The restless energy that once demanded constant motion learned how to breathe. He began to trust that who he was without the ball, without the routine, without the noise was enough to exist. This did not make him softer in competition, it made him clearer. Every sprint now carried intention instead of escape, every sacrifice a choice instead of a reflex. He stopped asking what the world expected from him and started asking what he wanted to give back. And the answer was simple: honesty, effort, and presence. Presence with his teammates, presence with his family, presence with himself. Because in the end, the greatest distance Cristiano Ronaldo ever closed was not between defenders, not between generations of records, but between the man he pretended to be and the man he truly was. And once that distance disappeared, once the chase ended, he realized something that no title could ever teach him: that fulfillment is not found at the finish line, but in the courage to stop running and finally arrive inside your own life. And arriving there did not make the world smaller, it made it clearer. He began to see how many people were running just like he once did, hiding behind success, noise, ambition, speed. He saw it in young players chasing approval, in veterans terrified of decline, in fans who needed heroes to be unbreakable because they were afraid to face their own fractures. Ronaldo understood then that his story was never just his. That vulnerability, when carried with honesty, becomes permission. Permission for others to breathe, to fail, to feel. He no longer needed to say this out loud, it lived in how he carried himself, in how he listened, in how he no longer flinched from questions that once cut too close. The armor was gone, but what remained was stronger, not louder, not sharper, stronger in the way roots are strong, unseen, patient, holding everything upright. And so the journey continues, not toward more proof but toward deeper meaning, where every step is no longer a defense against the past but a conversation with it. Because the truth Cristiano Ronaldo finally embraced is the truth most people spend their lives avoiding. You don't heal by becoming untouchable, you heal by allowing yourself to be touched by life, fully, painfully, beautifully, and still choosing to move forward. And moving forward now feels different, slower in pace but heavier in purpose. He no longer confuses motion with progress or noise with importance. Each day carries weight because it is chosen, not chased. He understands that the discipline that once built his body now has a new task: to protect his mind, to guard his values, to ensure that the life he built does not outgrow the man living inside it. Ronaldo knows there will be days when the old hunger returns, when the urge to prove, to dominate, to silence doubt rises again. But now he meets it with awareness instead of surrender. He does not fight it. He listens, takes what is useful, and lets the rest go. That is the difference between control and freedom. And in that freedom he finds something unexpected: joy without urgency, ambition without fear, pride without arrogance. The world may still measure him in numbers, but he measures himself in moments, moments of connection, moments of honesty, moments when he shows his children that strength does not mean hiding your wounds but carrying them with dignity. Because the final evolution of Cristiano Ronaldo is not the athlete who refused to break, but the man who broke, learned, and continued, not harder, not faster, but truer than ever before. And living truer than ever before brings with it a strange, unfamiliar calm, the kind that doesn't come from certainty but from acceptance. Ronaldo no longer wakes up feeling chased by time, no longer measuring his worth against yesterday's version of himself. He understands now that evolution is not about erasing who you were but integrating it, carrying every version of yourself forward without shame. The anger that once fueled him has softened into resolve. The fear that once drove him has transformed into awareness. He still pushes limits, still demands excellence, still refuses mediocrity, but the source has changed. It no longer comes from the need to escape pain, but from the desire to honor the opportunity he was given. He knows how rare it is to live a life fully seen, fully tested, fully exposed, and still come out standing. And with that knowledge comes responsibility. Responsibility to lead not just by performance but by example. To show that strength and sensitivity are not opposites, that ambition and humanity can coexist, that you can chase greatness without abandoning yourself along the way. Ronaldo realizes that the boy who lost his father too early and the man who carried a nation on his back were never separate stories, but chapters of the same journey moving toward understanding. And so when the stadium lights eventually dim for good, when the chants fade into memory, when his name becomes history instead of headline, he will not fear the quiet. He has already made peace with it. He will know that he lived fully, felt deeply, failed honestly, and loved fiercely. That he turned pain into purpose without letting it consume him. That he stopped running not because he was tired, but because he finally knew where he was going. And in that knowing lies the truest ending to his story, not as the world's most powerful athlete, not as an untouchable icon, but as a man who faced himself, accepted his scars, and chose, every single day after, to live with intention, humility, and heart.